Much media. Too much media.
All right. Hello? Hey, okay. So, yeah, I don't really have anything particular to tell you, but it's just going to be like a conscious stream of thought, and I'm going to see what I say because honestly, I feel like that is the most important part that you have to like take on with the creative process is that it's not always that interesting. Like sometimes it's like quite boring and tedious and like waiting for something to happen almost. And like that in itself, certain people should know how to appreciate. So I don't want, you to always be constantly knowing what I'm gonna talk about or like being anticipating exciting information at every point. Sometimes you have to like wait for me to get my point across or like see how everything circles back by the end or like, you know, because a lot of times that keeps happening to me where it's like everything always circles back. It circles back. Like everything is very cyclical in life. Like you you learn information one time and then like the same opportunity based off that past information presents itself again. So it's kind of like the same thing. I feel like with anything that I try to create, it's like it always ends up being important even though it was really tedious to get to that one small lump sum of information. Like I was watching, for example, this documentary on the Social Network movie. So you remember that movie they made uh, for Mark Zuckerberg? They made like an adaptation of what happened to him in college, in the making of Facebook, and him getting sued, and the twins who rode the boats and all that stuff. They have a documentary on how the film was made. It's on YouTube. It's free. And in that documentary, it's really interesting because that director is really highly regarded and everyone was extremely excited to have an opportunity to work with him. And it was an honor for them. And one of the things that they enjoyed is how many times they had to redo the same small takes, like the most, like what you would think would be minuscule information, he would make them redo like close to 100 times each time just to get the perfect shot of it. Because when you're watching the movie, he's paid that much tedious detail that every shot matters. That every inflection of each word matters just as much as well. So he'll even sit there and go through with the actors why each like sound of their voice matters in context to what's going on in the overall picture of like, how everyone's actually feeling about what they're saying. How like it needs to be clear in a if you understand how to pay attention way, but also in a regular if you're just watching passively way as well. Like both matter to him. So he has to get it 100 times to make sure it's hitting each base. And So you might say, what? You did almost 100 shots just to use one clip? Those other 99 or whatever were unimportant or like wasted time. But each one of those takes also gave them the information they needed to do all 99 of those mistakes correctly at once. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Because I'm sure it's not the same mistake each time. It's one small, different little thing that could make it just a bit better. But then you also need to know when to call it. Like it's time to say that amongst all of these shots, you must have learned. You must have done it right at least once better than like what I'll actually need based off all the other shots I get as well. Because that matters too. Once you put everything all together. But then once you put everything all together, you did 99 shots for each shot. That is insane. But that is also the process, you know? That's what you need to go through to get what you're trying to get. And recently, what I've been learning too is that, for example, he had someone, he had a group of people who are so excited to work with him that they're willing to follow his every demand because he's the director, you know? But, and that is why he's able to do what he does. If people around you are willing to execute your creative vision, then they're extremely useful to be around. But one thing I noticed is kids was never on set. Okay? I don't know if you have kids. I didn't see no kids running around set because it was on a college campus. I didn't see no family members. I didn't see no friends. I mean, he was friendly with all the workers with him, but it wasn't no friends that there wasn't no animals there, pets from the house. I'm sure everybody got stuff going on in their life, but wasn't any of that there with them while they were trying to get their work done. And I just feel like for me, I understand that when you're able to continue your creative process without a break in the stream of thought, there's nothing like it. One of the actors in the movie, his name is Jesse something. It's the one who played Mark. Dang it. I don't know. But Jesse something. If you watch the movie, then you'll see his name. Or if you watch the documentary, you'll know who I'm talking about. He was talking about how his favorite he was discussing how his favorite parts of the whole process of movie making, especially with this particular director, was the fact that they had to be away and in places where their entire lives were focused on the movie. there was nothing to discuss besides what they were making. And he loved that because he felt like at times, um, even when they weren't filming, he could fake act like his character with the other actors. Like he could take a minute with them and just, bounce off each other on the side because there's nothing else to do. They were in the middle of like, where he was at Harvard, right? So they were in the middle of Boston. So out there, like what is there to do? So that's all they were doing. They were just practicing fake acting like Mark Zuckerberg and them in college at all times, and like doing takes over and over and rereading scripts again and again, talking about how each way should be said in order to get off the correct feeling, like they were just, that's all they did. And, um, and he loved that. He just felt like afterwards, because some of it was filmed in Boston, but then they did have sets as well in LA, so then they also had to go film there. And he felt like once they got to LA, because people know people in LA, and LA is real busy, and like he just didn't feel as connected with the cast and things like that, and it didn't feel as like tuned in to the movie as it did when they were in Boston. And I'm like, yes, that is so relatable, because that need for a consistent stream of thought in order to finish a creative vision is really disrespected. And not only creative as well, because technical too. Like both ways, it's like that need to separate yourself from like the outward noise to finish what you're trying to finish is very frustrating, to mix in other people's like thoughts, opinions, and like, you know, need for whatever things that they're needing. It's not to say people are a hassle, but people are a hassle. Like adding even one person to any equation is a big statement. You need to take into account how much more one person is. Think about when you're out in groups. If you and someone go somewhere, it's like, all right, me and someone just went somewhere real quick. If the minute you add another person to you and someone, now you guys are a group. Now that's a lot more going on. Like, the minute you start adding people to things, it just becomes more and more of a hassle, because each person is gonna come with their own needs, wants, opinions, information, like perspective. Like they all have something going on. Think about like when you're on a road trip and everybody's set to go for hours, but one person keeps needing to use the bathroom. The difference between that one person being there and not being there is y'all getting there like 2 hours quicker. Do you see what I'm trying to say a little bit? And this goes into everyday life as well. It becomes frustrating when you're in a constant stream of thought and you're continuously interrupted. It's very, very disruptive, each person. And it's not to be offensive. It's just to be honest. I don't think any creative or intellectual would disagree with me on that statement. If they are true to their craft, I don't think so. And so sometimes it just becomes very frustrating in some aspects. But that's why you need to make sure whatever it is, it's worth it. You know, whatever you're working on, you better feel like it's worth it. That's all I recommend, honestly. As long as you feel like it's worth it, keep working on it. But oh, also though, think motives as well. Think what is your motivational purpose as well? Because I'm thinking back to my relative's graduation I went to, and he was graduating to be an engineer, and his what do you call those? His damn, why is this happening to me right now? Um, the person who tells you who gives the speech. There was multiple speeches. I'm confused. Oh yeah, she was a professor at the university, and they let her give the speech, I guess. So she was talking about how now that they have their degrees and are going to be, sought out to be hired by, some really good companies and like, you know, important, you know, important, important help that they are going to be able to give to the world, they need to be more intentional with what they decide to do for these companies when the time comes to decide, what you will and won't do. And I think that's really important because it's like, even in that aspect of like tech, for example, I struggle with being told what I should be working on by other people and their motives for why I should be working on it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So when you have the ability to hone in on any craft, you need to be careful of why you're using that craft, of what you're allowing people to benefit from when they take from that craft. Because it could be positive or negative, and that's in anything, in artistic and creative um, pursuits and technical and scientific intellectual pursuits, like all of them, honestly. Because even literature I'm thinking about right now, um, it's like, why did you write this book? Because I went to the bookstore the other day, and when I was there, my friend kept looking up the authors to see if there was any black authors. She was like, mm-hmm. The authors are all white. And I was just like, well, yeah, like, because of where we were, I was just like, come on now. And, and also it was just like, that's not surprising, but you know what? I wasn't doing that with the books I was picking up. So when she did mention that, I was thinking like, oh, that is a good point, like to take into account of like the perspective of what was your intention, you know, in writing this book. Like, why did you write this book? Why did you feel this book was needed for us to read, you know? And it's like, that's very, that is very, very, wow, that's crazy. I just thought of a moment that was very cyclical for me as well, that I'm not going to share, but it was that, wow. But to continue, yeah, like, um, anyway, I feel like, yeah, sometimes you just gotta, for the creative process to be, con, or whatever the process is to be a continuous stream of thought, you have to be alone, completely, utterly. They, as a group, were alone in Boston and stuck with each other in a very, you know, closed-minded, you know, area where they could just only feed off of each other's emotions and thoughts. So that's why I worked with a group. But a lot of the times, people cannot invest that in a day-to-day creative person. And therefore, that person needs to do that by themselves. Okay? It's a hard realization to come to, but you need to be alone. You have to be by yourself. No one can enter this space while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. It has to be you closed off by yourself, figuring out what you're figuring out, because the minute other people start to add in their thoughts and their opinions, they start to dilute the essence of what you're trying to do. You know, they start to say that they start to add in opinions that you're not even sure is their own. Because a lot of the times, everyone as a whole, our own opinions aren't our opinions. We are taught to have the opinions we have, and then we take them on and say they're ours, you know? And you, as the creative person, are already dealing with those opinions and deciphering which one of those opinions are your own in the first place. So now to add on whatever point of another person's opinions that may or may not be their own opinions on top of yours, it's a lot to ask for. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to do. And that's why, for example, even in that film, there must be a director. You know, if there's a director, things go smoothly. If not, it's chaos. And this has been on my brain a lot recently. I don't know why, but it's been the line, a leader is not the person who knows how to lead. It's the person who knows who to follow. Do you see what I'm trying to say? See, let's say there's a giant crowd and everybody starts running. Whatever people are running away from, what if one direction is the correct direction and the other direction is the wrong direction? You're gonna want to be running the same direction as the person who knew which way to go, not just the person who knew when to run. So it's like you need to be careful adding on to people to your creative process if you want it a certain way. If you're okay with shared input and thought, cool, do that. But there also has to be certain aspects that you do alone, or else you can't even get good enough at the craft to be able to do those things, to be able to give up on the process. So at some point or some time, you gotta be alone. There can never be a point where you are continuously collaborative. That is insane to ask for. If you don't pick a point to say no to collaboration, who are you at that point? You don't even know where you are, you know? So learning that part of creation is very important, you know? It's like so hard to know that, like, if you're blunt, honestly, it's like, um, you know, and you know, it's not even just about, uh, you know, the creative process in itself, as far as thinking of the mind state you need to be in, as in conscious stream of thought, you know, not straying from, you know, what you're trying to do. But with that conscious stream of thought comes an energy, comes a frequency, comes a certain, like, you know, need for excellence because of the, you know, attention to detail. That level of attention to detail you have when you're alone is different than when you're relying on other people's senses. Because when you have other people's senses to rely on, you might trust their opinion, you might trust their, you know, their logical standpoint on it. And so even though you see a clear line to whatever it is you're trying to do, they're constantly a little bit pushing you off the path or the view line of perspective because they're showing you theirs as well, which doesn't work. But yours is just perfect to see the finish line, you know? Yours is just perfect to walk your way right on out of here. Like, come, follow this way. You know what I'm trying to say? When it comes to whatever it is. But it's like, if you're alone, you would just do it because you don't have anything else. You would just go and it would work and you'd be like, yeah, it worked because I already knew it was gonna work. Like it was never gonna be an issue. I don't know why you kept saying, oh, but I see that, I see this. It was always gonna work. Like, what are you talking about? Why you keep tripping? Like, I know, I knew, but like, no one else did. No one else understood. I was trying to tell you. I was trying, bro. The amount of times that has happened to me in my life when I'm like, did you, bro? I tried to tell you why nobody was listening to you. I feel like some people have that, like, that life. Like, I don't know if it's like a, that probably is just a frequency too, honestly, now that I think about it. Where you always tell people something and nobody listens to you, and then it's too late for the information to be useful, and then everybody realizes that you was right all along. Oh my God, bro. Story of my life. That ish drives me nuts. But it's like it has to it has to go that way sometimes too. It has to go that way sometimes, honestly. It, it's like that's what kind of also helps you realize what to change. Because another thing I was thinking about today was secular music, as they call it. Because, you know, the religious people will be online talking about, like, Yeah, and then one day I came to the realization to stop listening to Beyonce. Oh Lord. I'm like, no girl, not Beyonce. You have to stop listening to Beyonce? Yeah, I had to stop listening to Beyonce. I'm like, that's real though. You had to stop listening to Beyonce. What was you up to when you was listening to Beyonce though? Hmm? When you was listening to Beyonce, what were you doing? And more likely than not, that was when they were doing things that they now consider to be secular, you know? Because they've changed their perspective, they've also changed their perspective on her music. And what I was thinking about was like, because personally, I was listening to Drake and it was bop after bop. I gotta tell you. But the thing is, I never used to listen to Drake. I never used to like Drake. Not that I didn't like Drake. Let me stop lying. But I didn't care for his music. To me, it was just pop music. It's like when you guys play the song that's popular for Drake, I'm gonna listen to it too. And if I really, really like it, I'm gonna know a couple lines. But I'm not sitting in my house like just drowning in a Drake song, you know? Because I saw a couple problems with Drake, okay? I saw a couple things I wasn't happy with. I just couldn't stand for. But then I thought about it. Oh no, I didn't think about it. Kendrick wiped the floor with him. What am I talking about? Kendrick wiped the floor with Drake. And after Kendrick did that, I was appeased. Honestly, I can't even. You know how Dr. Umar be talking about lashings? Like, that was kind of me. I was kind of like, oh, he got his lashings. Like, I was like, he got his lashings. He better act right. He better act right. And I feel like if Drake truly is as black as he says he is, he would understand his need for some lashing. But there's a couple things. Let me let me not continue. But how I was feeling was like I'm listening to Drake, I'm enjoying or whatever the Drake songs because now that I'm appeased, I was like, let me see what I've not been listening to all these years. Like, let me see what exactly got all these people so obsessed with Drake in the first place to the point where y'all gave him enough point to even have the ability to need to be given lashings or like to need to be to this point where now everyone's trying to tear him down and stuff like that. Like, what did he do that had y'all so convinced? Because to me, at the time when everyone was listening to Drake so consistently, I was like, I'm not really convinced because I'm usually not too. I'm not too fond of separating the artist and the artisticism or whatever. Like, I'm not too fond of that. Like, I kind of do equate the two, I believe. I'll go further into that one day. But I'm just kind of like, um, I'm just kind of like what, like for me, I never seen Drake do anything or say anything or act a certain way. I was so impressed with his character and his like persona to like care enough to actually dig into the music, which is sometimes my mistake, I believe too, and it closes me off to a lot of artists. But that's just kind of my way of like fielding artists is just be like kind of something else that they do. Like if they do something, I'm like, oh wow, I really like that stance on things. Like, or oh, like I like the way they dress, or I like the way they like. You'll have to do something else other than music to make me finally listen to your music, you know. So I never felt that way about Drake. I never felt like he was doing nothing so special to make me want to listen to him. And and this Kendrick beef and him having to get dragged like this, it made me be like, okay, let me now finally listen to Drake. Like, let me actually hear out what bro has to say, because like it's hard to really hear what a person is really about while they're like upset and trying to attack someone. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like it's easy to be like, okay, the Kendrick and Drake, you know, problem starts with this big explosion right here where a future Metro collab album feature takes direct shots. It's like, no. Who is this person that we call Drake? So I've been listening to Drake. I'm listening to Drake, and I'm thinking back to all these little clips I've been seeing of these religious people saying secular music had to be taken away from them because, you know, it gives them reminders of the things they were doing when they were in a unsecular way. And I don't know if I said that correctly, but whatever. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm listening to Drake right now, but like, and I hear so much like, I hear more than just like what like you would think you would hear when you listen to Drake. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like now I finally kind of understood why people fell for Drake, because I have to admit he's talented. He's very talented, and the way the attention to detail he takes in his work is something. Now back to what I was talking about with the creative process, like that level of honing in. Nah, like that's different. That's honed in the production, honing in the the bar and like hooks, honing in the like. It's just everything is very in line to the overall objective of whatever the message is. It's very on point in every aspect of like what you could think about it, but then it's just in Drake's perspective. It's like all of the things you would do at once, but make it Drake, you know? And then it's like, you know, him and like every single kind of tune, it's like always, it's always like real boppy. Like it's a bop. Like you can't make a bop not bop. That's a belief I have till time. That's a belief I have till time. But it's like you know. So now that I'm telling you, like you can't make a bop not bop, right? Is it bad for Drake to make these types of songs that we are now saying if we're leading a more righteous path, we're no longer gonna listen to a say Drake, a say Beyonce, a say whoever else. Is there music now unjustified to be made? Is it bad music? In a way, you might not listen to your praise music and say that's what's saving you. But low key, didn't Drake's music save you too? Because now you knew how to separate the good from the bad. It taught you what's the difference. It taught you the frequencies you're at, you could be at if you make those mistakes. It taught you, you know, um, you did something during that time that now you can know like it helps you keep track of like what helps versus doesn't help you be in a certain frequency as well. Like, I don't know. For me, personally, I've never been the type of person to split up my listening. Like, I'll listen to like, I'll listen to anything, honestly. Like, I listen to like the worst types of, you know, music that they all tell us is like, you know, oh, this is going to bring the devil in. Oh, look at what they're listening to. The young kids, they think this is okay. I listen to all that. I listen to all that. I don't care. I'm listening. I'm listening and I'm bopping to it, you know? But I don't feel like it's ever dictated my actions. I don't feel like I'm going to listen to Thug and go start thugging out. Okay? I might dress like I'm thugging out, but I'm not gonna actually go and do nothing. And to say that that is his responsibility to make sure I don't do is actually insane. It's actually insane. How little do you think of people that they can't not do that by themselves just because they hear Doug say that that's what he's doing, apparently, if he is or isn't, which, come on now, free Doug. And it's like,